Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the Political Brown Kid here. And I kind of want to talk about the subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI. Um, that's David Edwards Irving, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the reason why I'm kind of a little bit late on this, but I think Charlemagne the God had made headlines, at least I just happened to be looking on X, on the X social media platform, and I saw that some Nubians, some black people had they were kind of disappointed in Charlemagne and what he said. So I was just kind of like, well, what did he say? And I think that it was his appearance. I think he was co-hosting the Jon Stewart or whatever that guy named Stewart Daily, whatever that show is. I think he was the host for that night. I guess Jon Stewart was off. And so he went and did a monologue about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he was basically did a monologue against diversity, equity, and inclusion. You all know that white liberal racist Bill Maher. He did a rant on diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. And he had his panel people on there. And I think that's the one that where the Indian guy from CNN was on there, and they kind of talked about it. I think the Indian guy from CNN, I forget his name, Sanjay Gupta, is it? But I want to talk about it from a different perspective and a different lens because I'm conflicted. My answer about diversity, equity, inclusion is kind of cloudy, should I say, very nebulous. And the reason why, because I understand the reason to get rid of it, but I understand the need to keep it. But also, there would be no need to keep diversity, equity, and inclusion if black people were able to do what they should do. And that is openly discriminate against white people to make up for your disenfranchisement for the past 400 years. And that's not only here in the United States. I'm talking about Africa, throughout the diaspora, wherever there are black people and you run something, you should be discriminating. I know there's a lot of coons that are on my site right now ready to start typing comments. You may want to hold your comments to the end, but you're still going to be coons and you're still going to rant against me because anytime somebody wants to do financial harm to white people, economic harm to white people, there's always some black people willing to stand up for them. So let me break this down like this, and I'm going to use the Nelson Peltz theory. If you don't know who Nelson Peltz is, Google him, look him up. His last name is Peltz, P as in Paul, ELTZ. He is a major, I think he's a investment holder, an investment fund owner. I think he owns Trian Fund Management or something like that. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And he's apparently a major investor in Disney. And so about a month ago, and I've been following this, but I'm just now catching up on this. So that's why some of the things I'm going to say is going to kind of be not full of a lot of details. But about a month ago, he was on Nelson Peltz. Basically, what he was trying to do was he was trying to secure some board seats or director seats for him and another individual within his fund to sit on Disney's board. I do believe, as a director, I do think, but he wanted two board seats for himself and someone else in his company. And so one of the things that he said, and I'm going to do a quote from this article that I kind of wrote, well, not wrote down, but copied and pasted. So I won't say wrote down, but I copied. And I got this from this article. It was from Reuters, actually. And so what he said was this. He said, why do I have to have a Marvel that's all women? Now that I have not that I have anything against women, but why do I have to do that? Pelt said in the interview, published on Friday. This is from Reuters. Then there's another quote. Why can't I have Marvels that are both? Why do I need an all black cast? That one really got me. That's the one I'm focused on. He basically, this was all over. If you've been paying attention to CNBC, which I watch ritually, if you paid attention to that show, you would have seen this rant and others from Nelson Peltz on television. So basically what he's saying is he's tired of seeing the contrived, this narrative of pushing, minorities and also women into these, or should I say, I'm not even going to say minorities. I'm going to take that back. Non-whites, particularly blacks. He's tired of seeing blacks and women being forced into these and pushed into these prominent roles. He's tired of Disney blackwashing shows. He's tired of just seeing, it just seems like though this movement is just catching and he's just tired of it. He's got overload. And I get it. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel the same way he feels. So I understand the way he feels. So that's why I know you guys are going to say, you're contradicting yourself. I get it. But this is what he fails to understand. And I'm going to use this as an example. Some of you probably are too young to remember this, but I remember it. That goes to show you I'm 45. But early, I think about when smartphones were first rolling out, when smartphones were in their infancy. A lot of you don't remember this, but Apple actually came up with a revolutionary idea. Let's unlock your phone with your face. Some of you know where I'm going with this if you're old enough to remember. So Apple came up with this idea to unlock phones with their faces, and it was revolutionary. Everybody was waiting for this feature, the new phone to roll out so they could get this new phone with this new feature. The only problem was when it rolled out, white people were jumping for joy. Oh my God, this is fantastic. Then the black people started posting, I can't unlock my phone. It's not reading my dark face. And then, of course, I'm paraphrasing with that one. I had to put that in. And then, another black person said, me neither. I can't unlock my phone either. So people of a darker hue were having a hard time unlocking their phones. Then I think an Asian person chimed in and said, I can't unlock my phone. I guess because of their eyes and their facial features. So they were having problems. So Apple had to go back and do updates to this particular feature. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because this is a mirror of what life is. This is a mirror of a whole bunch of Apple employees, and we all know that Apple, as well as most big tech companies, are dominated by white people. White people, male, female, what have you. All of these companies are white, white, white. There are Asians in there as well, but there are very few black people in there. So obvious, I can only assume that when they did this feature, and if anybody knows about when you're building something, you have to test something. So number one, they went into it with a bunch of assumptions. This is my theory. They went into it with a bunch of assumptions. And the reason why I say my theory is because I wasn't in the room. So obviously, no one asked the big question. Well, they went in there and they said, let's create this feature. Oh, this works just fine. This is what we're going to do. And all the while when you're creating something, typically when you create something with yourself in mind. I mean, so I'm not trying to say that this is malicious racism. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that sometimes you just get caught up in yourself. A lot of times I do it too. When I write, I'm writing from a black perspective. I like to write stories that feature somebody that looks like me. That's what I do when I write. So when somebody's creating something, I understand it. When I do presentations, I purposely plug in people that look like me. If I'm doing a presentation with animation and graphics and stuff. So getting back to the Apple thing, excuse me, they obviously went in there, assumed that this is the feature and we're going to use it. And then when they tested it, they were just testing probably lighter hued people. Probably didn't have any Asians test either. And so the feature came up the way that it came up. And then you have these errors. So when you don't have a diverse group that can chime in, if you don't have a handicapped person, a person, if anybody's familiar with 508 compliance, when you create stuff, it has to be able to be used by people with disabilities. You can't just roll something out and then say, oh, I forgot that somebody's blind and they may not be able to get this discount because you decided to create something in text and didn't consult somebody with Braille. You held a conference and you forgot to invite somebody, that can do sign language for somebody that's hearing or visually impaired. These things that you have to know about. and you just can't create. I mean, sometimes, and I guess you can. In some places it's actually a law that you have to have 508 compliance. So because some things, if it's mandated that it has to be used by all, you have to give people a fair shake. Matter of fact, I want to say that Pizza Hut, I think it was a pizza place, and I want to say it was Pizza Hut. They were sued. Or was it Domino's? It was one of them, but they were sued because they offered coupons for I guess ran a promotion, offered coupons, didn't do coupons for people that were visually impaired, and those people couldn't use the coupon, so they got sued. And I think the people won $1 million. But back to it, back to the subject at hand. When you're not including everyone, you're going to have these misses like this. And so what happened is America, and these are all, once again, sins of the father, by the way. When you're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, there would be no need for diversity, equity, and inclusion if white people hadn't discriminated for 400 years. If white people hadn't disenfranchised black people for 400 years, they would have no claim for really diversity, equity, and inclusion. If white people's practices had not been solely, let's just hire white people, let's intentionally keep white people at the top of the hierarchy in the C-suite, which is the CEO, CIO, CFO, CMO, and all of those alphabet acronyms for bosses, if those people weren't always intentionally white in management and just keeping black people at the bottom level with the glass ceiling, and even women, I'm going to throw women in too because they had glass ceilings as well. If you didn't do that, there would be no need for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But now you've reached this point where, and once again, this guy Nelson Peltz, and I call it the Nelson Peltz theory because, and really it's the Nelson Peltz mindset, because this is a mindset of a lot of white people. They get tired and start rolling their eyes. And trust me, I get tired and rolling my eyes too. Every time I see a show that's contrived, it has to have a gay person, and they're going to make the gay person a black man. And then they got to have an interracial love, and it's going to be a black woman with a white man. I get tired of the contrivedness too. But the remedy to that is own your own stuff. When you can have people like Tyler Perry and you own your own studio and you can put out your own content, you make stuff with your people in mind. You make stuff with your people in mind. You write shows with your people in mind. You hire your people. Yeah, it is discrimination. So for all you that are sitting there, it sounds like, yeah, because white people discriminate all the time. Every television show that you watch, like I told y'all, I'm watching Black Sails right now because it's on Netflix. The two black people on the show is a black man, and he isn't even thinking about any sexual relations with any woman on the show. He's androgynous. So far, I'm on episode 4. But the black woman, she's a light-skinned black with fine hair, so she can pass the comb test. She passed the paper bag test. I keep telling y'all about this. And from episode 1, she has been banging every white man and white woman on the show. She's been given hand jobs. She's given full-on intercourse. She's doing it all on the show. And she doesn't identify as black. She hadn't even interacted with this black guy that's on the show. Haven't seen it. And she was actually lovers with the white woman that the black guy consults, and he's kind of like her right hand man. She didn't interact with this black guy one time. But white people write shows all the time where the cast is 90% white and they're doing miraculous things. They have big budgets. They have $500 million budgets for movies. They got Titanic budgets. They got Star Trek Into Darkness budgets. They got Star Wars episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 budgets. They have Hunger Games budgets. And then as soon as a black show wants a budget, then what do? Well, you know what? Most we'll give you is $500,000 for this movie. Let's see if you can make it work. They give you Chicken George type money. They give you Chitlin money. They honestly do. And then to top that off, is more disrespect, as Eddie Murphy proved in Coming to America. Then they tell you have to have a white guy in your show. Eddie Murphy tried to do Coming to America. He was just casting people, and the directors or the executives funding the movie said you have to put a white person in the show. So it's funny that white people want diversity, equity, and inclusion when they're not included. But when they're included, they don't want diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because Google's all white, Microsoft's all white, Amazon's all white as far as executives, they don't care. They don't care that you're just in the Amazon warehouse. You don't deserve executive positions. This is white people's version of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Anytime you hear a white person say, oh, my child goes to a diverse school, I can guarantee you that school is 80% white and it's got sprinkled in Asians, Latinos, and blacks. They make up less than 20%. And white people call that diverse. They're not going to send their kid to a school that's 50% black where they're in the minority or it's even numbers. They're not going to do that. So when we talk diversity, equity, and inclusion, the reason why it sometimes becomes necessary is because white people practice diversity, equity, and inclusion all the time. When you look at the numbers of all of the executives at these companies, they're all white. And black people do it to themselves because black people don't counter. Black people don't say, well, you know what? Because I guarantee you, if you go and look at Oprah's company, look up Oprah's company and look at her executives. Google to see what her business hierarchy chart looks like. Google it. I guarantee you, all the important people are pretty much white. That stupid Russell Simmons. You have Def Jam. He turned it over to a white guy. I don't make this up. Lear Cohen. He could have turned that company over to anybody. He turned it over to a white guy. We continually do it to ourselves. We get our companies and we say, oh man, I can't find any feasible black person to run my company. Really? All of these black people with degrees, especially you got all these black women claiming that they're the most degree people on planet Earth, and you can't find one black person that's competent enough to run your company? No, it's just that you're brainwashed as a black person to think that your people are bad. And you don't want it. And black people just do this to themselves. They say, oh, I don't want to see a whole bunch of darkies running around in the building. We got to have some white people. We always are looking out for the well-being of white people. I don't know where this mentality came from. Oh, where the white people at? I don't know if y'all know this. And I've said this before. When they made The Best Man, the movie The Best Man, I think it was The Best Man. Yeah, and there was The Best Man follow-up because they did The Best Man Holiday. I remember Nia Long getting on television and saying, why can't her character have a white lover? We need to have white people on the show. Why do you care that you had a successful first show of The Best Man, you're following it up with a sequel, and you all are concerned about white people? Just be concerned about I don't understand where we just we just feel compelled to just keep white people on the top. Martin Luther King, the same thing. We got to save white people from themselves. Oh, white people are making a mistake. It's our job to help fix them. Why? Malcolm X said that ain't my problem. But Martin Luther King trying to save everybody. I'm telling you, you have to look out for yourself first. So I get it. The diversity, equity, and inclusion, like I told y'all, it's a muddy thing. Trust me, I don't like seeing these shows either. I don't like seeing recasts of. I'm not a big Disney fan anyway. I just don't like to see it because it feels contrived. But give us our own big budgets. Disney should have a black department or Disney Soul, whatever you want to call it, and say, look, here's some big budgets. Go off and create your own fantasy shows. Create your own little, fan. We're going to keep, the Little Mermaid white because that's what, she's been historically. But we are going to give you all budgets and the creative opportunity to go out and create new stories for your generations to have and inherit. They don't do that because they always give us Chicken George. I told y'all they give us Chicken George budgets. But black people, once again, when black people get their own company, like Tyler Perry, what do? He creates a show called Sisters, and he got to have the sister with a white man. He creates the show The Oval Office, he got to have the sister with a white man. We always are looking for some way to plug in white people into our universe, into our ecosphere. I don't make this up. Oprah Winfrey has backed plenty of white men. She's backed some shady characters too. She's backed some shady characters with some shady past, and y'all can go ahead and look that up. But she don't, as much as she like talking about black men, she don't talk about the white people that she has put on that have done some very nasty things to women. But nobody mentions that. She hires nothing but white women in her company. Go look it up. Excuse me. Tyler Perry, he's not doing that much better. 50 Cent, he got to plug in a white boy to be on his show, to be the gangster and be the cool dude. Now all the black girls loving Tommy and they just want a piece of Tommy. I can't make this stuff up. You guys never look out for your best interests. Africa, they, instead of taking back power and nationalizing all of that stuff to redistribute the wealth back to their own people, they allow what, 100,000, maybe a million white people live in Africa. I don't know. But they are less than 10% of the population in Africa. But yet they hold 99% of the wealth. That makes no sense. So at some point in time, I get it, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. I get it. I'm tired of it too, in a way. But in a way, I see where it's necessary because black people have the mentality where they refuse to save themselves. They refuse to say, you know what? We're going to hire all these black people and we're going to give them jobs. How many times you've been on a job and you've asked your manager, well, why did this person get hired? They always have an excuse of why they promoted some white person over you. They always have an excuse. Some white person just started. You've been with the organization 9,000 years, still working there. You're still at the bottom or in the middle. And some little white person they hire straight out of college, and 2 weeks later, they're your boss. Or they're an executive. They're on the fast track. And white people don't give you excuses. They treat you like a child, like you can't see this coming. Like you don't, no, really? Really? I didn't know that happened. They always play dumb. And then they just get to the point where they just fire you if you keep asking too many questions. So at some point in time, you're going to have to start playing the same game. Listen, and that's why I say, in a way, I don't feel sorry for our people. I feel frustration mostly because all of these basketball players, all I keep hearing is them complaining. Football players too, complaining about treatment. And yet none of you have said, well, let's go start our own league. None of you have said, well, hell, Ice Cube has started the Big Three. Let's go play over there. We can get some ownerships and we can change the model up over there. None of them think to do this. Taraji crying for more money. But instead of taking the Desi Banks or the Country Wayne route and doing a grassroots effort online, she's just complaining she wants more money. And anytime you're looking for the white man or even our own people to give you and pay you what you deserve, you're going to run into a disaster because white people don't have your best interests at heart. They only have their interests at heart. Because trust me, Katniss Everdeen, the little lady that played Katniss Everdeen, she ain't complaining about money. Charlize Theron ain't complaining about money. All of these little white women, they not complaining about money. Some of them are. They just want more money, and all they do is use black people to co-sign their movement until they get paid. And then once they get paid, they stop fighting. But Taraji gonna always fight because she's relying on white people to pay her what she thinks she should be paid, and she probably does deserve to be paid more. Terrence Howard, the same thing. He's going to be crying, trying to get paid, and they're not going to get paid. And then the black people that's supposed to be on their side, they're not going to pay them either because black people are so enamored with whiteness and they're so fearful of white people and fearful of the backlash of being canceled that they don't do it. Once again, I told you all have no power. Go back and look at the very first videos that I've done. Dig into my archives. There are, 2-3 billion black people on planet Earth. But your money is nothing. Financial power is everything. There's 2 billion black people on the continent of Africa and all of those 100 countries in Africa. And only 10%, less than 10% of the population is white, but they control 99% of the money and the rest of the blacks live in damn near poverty. I don't make this up. So you can't have a movement without money. You can't have a movement without resources. And the black people here in America, they're getting money, but they're so scared to tick off the establishment that they don't side with anything. They're the only people that don't side or try to say, well, what's the best interest for black people in the diaspora? The first thing you're going to hear Jew ask about is, what are you doing for Israel? You don't hear that come from black people's mouths. You don't hear black people say, well, what are you doing for Africa? Or what are you doing for black people in America? They don't do it. So that's why diversity and equity and inclusion, like I said, it's a muddled topic. Until black people are able to start discriminating, like if you're going to discriminate and say, hey, well, look, I'm a black athlete, I'm going to hire me a black management firm, and I'm going to spread the wealth. There's a couple of black, because I know Jay-Z, and I hate that dude, but I'll mention him. He has Rock Nation and people are signing to that. But at some point, he's going to have to, and when I say he, I'm talking about Jay-Z, is not have a monopoly. Say, hey, look, I'm allowing other blacks to play in my space with me. There are other blacks. We're going to share the wealth, and all of the black athletes are going to sign with our management firm companies. When we have black stuff, we're going to hire black marketing companies. And those black marketing companies better have black executives at their company. Those companies better be predominantly black, and they better be paying well. Their employees and their executives should be black. That's the way you get things done. And if you own a black business, you should be partnering with other black businesses. Construction companies like owned by Don Peoples. Don Peoples should be looking and saying, where are my black contractors at? Where are my black electricians? Where are my black plumbers? Y'all need to get together and do, collaborate on one or two of my projects. I got big projects going up in Miami and in DC. Y'all need to get on board. And he should be doing that. Matter of fact, it's a black female that owns, is it McKinsey? I think her company's McKinsey. She's an architect. She's in construction and she does project management. She actually did the African American Museum because she partnered when she won the bid with the Smithsonian. They should be talking to her. And Don Peoples and all of the contractors, hey, they should all be getting together saying, what project are we going to work on next? Let's see black people do that. That's how you can get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because if white people want to keep Google and Microsoft and all of these other companies all white, predominantly white, okay, fine. But we'll keep our companies all black. We'll control the spaces we can control, and we'll hire the people we can control, and y'all can do whatever it is you want to do. And that's the way you're going to have to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I've rambled on enough. These are just my thoughts. Once again, if you have any opinions, drop them in the comments section. Definitely hit the like and subscribe. But once again, this is the Political Brown Kid. I'm out of here.